Hi everyone, good day. I hope you're enjoying the talks and workshops here at UXDX APAC so far. Today, I'm gonna share about our experiences in Quipper about handling sudden growth. I'm Christine Joy Paas, and you can reach me by this handle on GitHub and on social media. So I'm currently an engineering manager at Quipper. I mostly work with Ruby on Rails, JavaScript, Unix systems, and Kubernetes. My hobbies during the pre-COVID era were traveling and swimming, and they helped me relax from the very stressful rigors of the job. And unfortunately, we cannot do those now because of the restrictions. So recently, I've been reading a lot and watching series and movies via Netflix, basically. And this photo was taken in Busan in South Korea a couple of years back with my friends. So cat love Busan. So I also love cats, by the way. And I hope to come back here soon. So my company is Kuiper. So we are an edtech company. One of our services that we offer is a learning management system. So this is used by teachers, students, and even parents for education. So yeah, that's for our company. And our agenda for today is first our the company state in 20 early 2020 and the challenges we had last year, our response, the results of our efforts there, the future, and some of the takeaways from the experience. So in early 2020, the first couple of months there, we just finished restructuring. So this was a very big decision for us. So we decided to split the Japanese business from the rest of the global businesses. So the implication of this in the product is we had to do a code split. So that means we made a copy of the code base and basically go our own way from there. So as part of the global product team, our goal was to develop features for the global markets, and we had the product roadmap ready for this. And why did we have to do this big decision? Mainly, it's because of the difference in academic calendars. So, what makes it complicated when you're in the edtech business, especially if it's used by schools, is that you cannot release very big changes on the platforms while the school year is ongoing. So because of the different academic calendars in different countries, that makes it a lot complicated. And because of that, that affects our business sustainability. And that's why one of the reasons we had to do this. But then on March 2020, I think this affects every one of us in the world now. So the COVID situation worsened, and many countries had to go on lockdown, including Philippines and Indonesia, where we have our uh, operations. So we had to switch to a work from home setup, and everything had to be done online. This was not a big change for the product team as we work from home once in a while as well. But for the other departments and our clients, it's a very big change. And in effect, our users also had to adapt to the situation. So if before our services were mostly used for as a supplemental service, so things like assignment to give the students for them to answer after class, now they use our services for synchronous education. And if before the teachers only send Quipper contents to their students, now they also create their own. For example, the exams. Uh, for the departmental exams, they have to actually align the contents of the exam based on what they teach their students. So that's why they have to customize their content. So they have to create their own content on our platforms. So to illustrate this change in behavior, let's see the usage pattern in 2019 and 2020. So for the teacher usage, there's really not much change. There were a bit of spikes here and there, and here in 2020, there's a drop here, which I assume is their lunchtime. But basically, the trend is similar. However, if you see the students' pattern, it's a really big difference. And students were more active in 2019 in the evening, so that supports the the behavior that they only were answering their assignments on Quipper after their classes. And come 2020, this usage pattern of the students are closely mirror the usage pattern of the teachers. So they are using it at the same time, so synchronously. We also observed a change in the number of access. The top one is the graph for teachers, and the bottom one is for the students. So we had our lockdown around the middle of March, and as you can see, it's like overnight we already have a drastic increase in our usage. So it dwindled down around May, but the Philippine school calendar ends around April or May. So this change was expected. So for the students, it was the same pattern, but it looks very small compared to the teachers. But that's because at this time, we only the existing clients were using and finishing their contract with for the year. But around August and September, new clients came in and they started using more of our services. So this changes brought about a lot of challenges, and it has effects on our product. So the first is that there was a higher demand for features to facilitate online education. Um, at the start of the year after the code split, we had a product roadmap ready, but because of this change, we had to revisit that roadmap and reprioritize and check which ones should be prioritized to match with the demand of the teachers and students. And the second is that there was a higher traffic, as explained before. And it's not just because of the increase in the number of users, but they are spending a lot more time on our platforms. So, for example, if teachers were just sending assignments with contents prepared by Quepper, now they also had to author their own contents there. So in turn, they had to use our systems for a longer time. And the third one is that more bugs were discovered due to increased usage because they were covering a lot more use cases. And frankly, some of these are things that we didn't design for. So we had to fix those because they were adapting and we had to adapt to how they use our systems too. And since the usage is synchronous, we had also to fix and address these issues with a higher urgency. It's because if they experience an issue while they are doing class, it already disrupts the entire flow of the class. Okay, and At the same time, around August, when the new school year started, and some of the private schools started in August, but the public schools, which have a much higher population, were scheduled to start in October. However, in September, we already had incidents in which it was hard to use our platforms. So the challenge for us was to address these issues. From September until October, we had like less than a month to make the system stable. So some of the things that were experienced during those incidents, some of the main symptoms were slow access on some pages, which eventually led to errors. The second is late delivery of activities to students. So for the second one, imagine the situation where you have a class from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and the teacher is sending a quiz to students. So when the teacher sends the quiz to students, they are expecting to receive it right away. But what happened was it was taking a long time. So there were some cases in which they were not able to receive it within the scheduled class. So it was a really big disruption in their class flow. So what we found uh, that caused this were first, there was slow performance on database, so we had to optimize this further. There was no CDN or content delivery network set up on some platforms, so we had to set that up. Next is that auto-scaling setup didn't work because it was based on the assumptions that don't uh, that were not true anymore. So we improved the scaling based on the observed patterns, based on the data, and considering the peak times. So some more details on our response is this was our reaction. So everyone was really panicking because we were getting a lot of feedback from the users. We felt we were not ready for this, and we didn't expect to grow this fast. If your if your business grows too fast, the problems grow too fast as well. So we had to really do something about this. So on the platform side, we had this efforts that we call platform optimization efforts. The reasons why we had to do this is that we realized that by focusing on developing features, we had less attention on scalability. And because we focused on that, we also accumulated technical debt, and now it's time to pay that back. And lastly, the new features are useless, no matter how flashy it is. But if users cannot use our core features, it's going to be useless. So, which led to our decision to put a freeze on developing new features and focus on improving our systems for the meantime. So I was chosen to lead the efforts, and we broke it down to three main focus points. So as an engineering manager and as a dev, my main focus is on the technical part, but we also have to maintain communications and the operations. So for the technical part of the efforts, our purpose was to prevent these accidents from happening again. So we had to do a lot of things like clean up code, remove unnecessary requests, because we observed our web clients and some mobile clients were sending unnecessary requests to the API, which just adds a load to our systems, but eventually the client apps don't use that data. So we remove those. Third is we improve performance via various techniques like caching, N plus one fixes, algorithm improvements, and others. And next is we studied our data and we set up auto scaling and scheduled scaling based on those. And we also ensured that the apps had enough resources so that they don't crash. And lastly, we had to improve the database for higher capacity. So everything we had to do within a month. And to be honest, it wasn't finished and it's still an ongoing effort, but we had to do what we had to do with the time given to us. The second is the communication. So the goal for the communication part is to keep everyone on the same page. So first, before we proceed with the technical things that we had to do, we needed to agree on the timeline with everyone from the product, the business, the support. And at the same time, we also communicate it to the users about the things that we are doing so that they are assured that we are doing things to improve their experience. And third is we set up a weekly checkup with the platform teams so that we can maintain a cross-platform communication while we are changing a lot of code. Because what has been happening before is that the platform teams were doing their own thing, and most of the time communication is forgotten. And the fourth one is that we compiled common issues encountered so that the support officers can respond to users faster. And also, these issues take a lot of time to investigate. Some of the issues we had to investigate for an entire day or sometimes can even lead to multiple days. And we had to focus on improving our system. So this is like time better spent on that. So yeah, we did this also so that the devs can focus on enhancing our systems. Lastly, we created an incident management flow so that everyone is up to date on the status of incidents that may happen. So basically, we had like a single source of truth when there's an incident happening. And so that it's not chaotic where people are communicating on different channels. And for the operations, our goal was to recover from the incidents as quickly as possible. So the main thing that we had to do for this is to have developers on standby on a rotation basis from 6:30 a.m. because that's when the teachers started to get active. So this was a big sacrifice for the devs, especially because we usually start our work at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. in Philippine time. So starting at 6:30 is really, really early for most of us. So what are the results of this? First is that there were much less crashes on our applications. The red bars here are the error occurrences. And when we had incidents in September, as you can see, it was crashing a lot. But before October came, we were able to stabilize the system. And when the big schools came in October, it was already stable. And second is we improved the overall response time. This is a result of all the things that we did to optimize the system. And it's been on a downtrend since we started it. And we are pushing to maintain this trend. So it's a continuous improvement. And the next ones would be that there were no major incidences despite increasing usage. So we were actually crossing our fingers when October came that we hope this thing doesn't happen. And Good thing it didn't, and not to the extent that we had in September. So our scaling system worked perfectly with the new configurations because it was based on the data of the current situation. And the third is the cross-platform communications. So the platform teams really like that we had the weekly updates because aside from giving other teams a heads up of what they are doing, they also learn from each other what the other teams are doing, and they also adapt some processes to their own teams. And fourth is that we raised awareness on how developments in different departments affect each other. It's not just the product team in educating the business and support on how we do things, but we also learn from them how they respond to crisis. So it was really a big win for us, and we managed the traffic at peak times, but the war is not yet over. So it's an ongoing improvement. And actually, in October, there was a small thing that was still happening. So there were degradations at some points of the day um, at one time in October. And we found that we hit our limit of concurrent usage. So many students and teachers were using at that exact time, and we found that our system's capacity was hit. So we we have to do something to increase that capacity, and that was already increased, but we are still ongoing in further improving that, because if we want to grow our business, we have to allow more people to access our systems at the same time. And other things that we need to do is to establish workflows and processes. So some of this we have to uh, think on our feet to solve the problems, but moving forward, it's not enough. We have to establish workflows and processes for that. And the second is to improve our incident response process. The first time we used the incident management flow that we developed was a bit chaotic, and people were still confused. So we found some points of improvements on that, and we hope that the next time we use this, although it's not good if we get to use it, I hope it's more organized. And the next would be to switch from being reactive to proactive. We survived the crisis because of the efforts that we made, but it was a very reactive response because we waited for the things to happen before thinking of ways to solve it. So in the future, we would like to be more proactive in a sense that we will anticipate things that can go wrong and already have some plans in place to resolve them when they happen. And fourth is that to have changes on an organizational level from the lessons learned. And as I said earlier, we learned from different teams how we handle crisis. So it's like because of that, it opened the communication line, not just within the product team, but with the other departments. And so we have to make some improvements in our systems from the things that we learned from each other. To summarize everything, here are some takeaways from the experience. So first is that data is your friend. Always analyze the data to make the sound decisions. And especially when in an unfamiliar territory like this things that we experience, no one had really the exact experience on that. So it's like we were blind, but checking the data and analyzing it would make us see what's really happening. And that helped us prioritize and decide on things more confidently. And second is to not procrastinate in technical issues. And they will come back to bite you when you are less prepared, so don't wait for them to snowball. We were a young company, so growth is very important, and many startups also focus on growth. But um, we shouldn't forget this, because later on, when we get the big users that we want, it's gonna bite us back. So yeah, don't procrastinate, and at least allot some resources to pay back the technical debt. And third is, we can prepare all we want. We can have roadmaps, we can have different workflows, processes, and plans, but there will always be situations which we are not prepared for and will be caught off guard. So we must learn to think on our feet and learn to adapt, basically. And fourth is be decisive for the users. So in Quipper, one of our values is user first. So we think what is good for the users. And well, we would in the company we like the order, but sometimes cascading decisions and discussions through that process can be costly. And in our situation, we had less than a month to solve the problems. If we, if we decide in 1 week, 2 weeks, that's time that we could already use to solve a lot of issues. So we had to be decisive on this, and we just made the call and owned whatever the result of that is. So yeah, it's this is not always applicable, but in our experience, this is this is one of the situations in which you need to decide quickly. I hope you have learned a lot from the experiences that I've shared. And this is not the only challenge that we face. And we, as I said earlier, we are continuously learning and continuously improving. So if you want to improve and grow with us, be a distributor of wisdom and join us. So we are looking for some members of our product team in Japan, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And if you are interested, please visit our career page at career.quipper.com. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you've learned a lot.